Hollywood, Florida, July 27th, 1981, a sweltering summer afternoon, Sears department store, the toy section glowing under flickering neon lights, the hum of arcade machines echoing through the aisles like a subconscious rhythm. Adam John Walsh, 6 years old, steps inside, wide eyes taking in the dolls, the miniature cars, the shelves of brightly colored toys, his heart pounding, yet he tries to remain calm. His mother, Rive, just a few meters away, observing the crowd, selecting her purchases. Adam is allowed to watch a group of older boys playing video games. Less than 10 minutes. A fleeting moment, yet enough for a nightmare to begin. The laughter, the button presses, the noisy rhythm of arcade machines, and then silence. When Reeve turns back, Adam is gone. No footsteps, no crying, no trace to indicate his path. A timid boy, gentle, following one of the older kids outside without saying a word. The teenage security guard had instructed the older children to leave. Adam followed and vanished from sight. Just minutes, a few small steps, and he was gone. The surroundings remain unchanged, yet the space feels contracted. The posters hanging above the aisles, the arcade lights flickering. Everything seemingly normal. Yet inside the minds of witnesses, a creeping unease spreads. The noise becomes muffled, laughter fading into distant echoes. Eyes scan the room without comprehension. A story is beginning, and no one yet realizes. Media reports later would emphasize singular disappearance, fate unknown. Cold, precise words, as if fate had marked an ending before the story began. Yet at that moment inside the store, inside his mother's mind, panic had not yet fully erupted. She calls his name a few times, and then staff around notice. A frantic search begins. Fact layer, police reports, official documentation, witness statements, surveillance cameras primitive and unreliable. But every account points to a sliver of time. 10 minutes, one small boy, a group of older children, a crowded store, and a boy disappears. Investigators would later call it a series of small, seemingly harmless events that led to tragedy. Folklore layer. Locals whisper that on that afternoon they saw the shadow of a small boy trailing the group of older kids outside. A shadow, some say, faded, almost not of this world. Stories began to form. Adam never truly left the store. He still stands there, among us. Only we cannot see him. A haunting, whispered murmurs. The image of a lost child lingering. Reeve Walsh, walking the aisles, calling for her son. Footsteps echoing through the nearly empty department. Shoppers glance over their shoulders, confused, unaware. Staff attempt reassurance, yet are themselves stunned. The teenage guard feels a pang of guilt. Just a moment's distraction, a minor misstep, yet the consequence, irreversible. Outside the store, Florida sun blazing, the sidewalk uneven beneath small feet. The older children depart. Adam follows, tiny steps on the cement, car horns, voices, and passing pedestrians, all forming a mundane soundtrack. But in that moment, a door opens into darkness, a world he had never known, where the invisible and the real intersect, where a child could disappear without a trace. Investigators would later meticulously record every detail, every person in the area, surrounding stores, each piece of information precious. But at that moment, no one could have predicted that within 10 minutes, a boy would be taken from his mother's sight and a nation would be shaken. And then, the rapid breathing of those watching, of Reeve Walsh. Anxiety begins to ripple outward. Fact layer and folklore. Layer converge. The boundary between reality and legend blurs. His mother's eyes scan the aisles, searching, yet find nothing. The boy's form gone. An ordinary day, an ordinary store, an arcade machine, all seemingly normal, yet beneath it, singular disappearance, fate unknown, a story beginning that no one could anticipate. The search begins immediately, chaos erupting within minutes of Adam's disappearance. The store staff frantically looking through aisles, shoppers confused, alarmed, Whispers growing louder. A boy. He's gone. The mall's hum becomes a backdrop to panic. Phone calls to police. Reports filed. Neighbors canvassed. Detectives arrive, notebooks in hand, eyes scanning every inch of the department store and its surrounding parking lot. Each detail meticulously recorded. Every witness questioned. Every sound catalogued. Fact layer. Early police logs describe the scene in clinical terms. A 6-year-old child last seen in the toy section following older children outside. The security guard's statements. The confusion over who was responsible. How quickly events unfolded. Minutes that would define the course of history. Investigators documented the timeline. Less than 10 minutes elapsed. That was all it took. No one noticed a boy slipping quietly from view. A singular disappearance. Fate unknown. Outside in the blazing Florida heat, detectives canvassed the area surrounding Sears. Parking lots, alleyways, nearby streets. Their eyes scanning cars, bushes, dumpsters. Every shadow suspicious. Residents questioned. Descriptions of a small boy. A timid child. Some said he looked frightened. Some said he seemed to wander willingly. Conflicting accounts, yet all pointing to the same terrifying truth. Adam Walsh was gone. By August 10, 1981, 2 fishermen far from the store, in Vero Beach, 100 miles north, discovered something that would shock the nation. A severed head, floating in a drainage canal. Adam's head. His body never recovered. The police report is stark clinical, yet chilling. Singular disappearance. Subsequent discovery. Partial remains. Identification confirmed through dental records. A nation stunned. Grief and outrage. Questions that could not be answered. Fact layer continues. Otis Elwood Toole, a career criminal with a record of violence, in prison at Rayford, Florida, confesses in October 1983, details the abduction, the murder, initially implicates Henry Lee Lucas, a serial killer legend, but investigations reveal Lucas was in Virginia at the time, alibis verified. The confession shifts. Toole alone. Admitted to the crime. Claimed to know exactly where the body was buried. Yet the location yields nothing. Searches conducted. Empty soil. Silence where evidence should be. Months pass. Toole recants. New confessions emerge, each more contradictory than the last. Investigators frustrated. Legal authorities cautious. Physical evidence lacking. Prosecutors unable to bring charges. The case becomes a web of statements, false leads, confessions and retractions, a chilling dance of truth and deception, fact layer bleeding into ambiguity. The nation watches, parents terrified, children warned. A shadow of fear grows. Folklore layer. Even amid these grim facts, stories circulate. Whispers among locals that Adam's disappearance left a lingering presence. A boy unseen wandering empty malls. Arcade machines left on. Faint giggles echoing in the quiet hours. Employees reporting odd sightings. Fleeting glimpses of a small figure. Standing watching. Vanishing. Some claim that at night the air in the store feels colder. Heavier. Charged. As if holding on to the memory of a lost child. Shadows flicker. Moving just beyond perception. Haunting the memory of those who witnessed that fateful afternoon. Back at the Walsh household, grief takes root immediately. Reeve and John Walsh coordinating search parties, plastering flyers, media outlets broadcasting the abduction nationwide. Each tip called in, every lead pursued, phone calls to law enforcement and neighbors. The tension unrelenting, the heartbreak palpable. Parents desperate to fill 10-minute gap that had destroyed everything, 10 minutes that changed the course of their lives. Investigators note the psychological impact, trauma of the family, the fear spreading through Hollywood, Florida, parents of other children keeping watch over their own, malls instituting new security measures, guards more vigilant, yet Adam's absence remains, unexplainable, singular, haunting, fact layer cold, precise, official, yet the human story, the grief, the dread, lingers in folklore, whispers turning into legend. Months turn into years. Toole's multiple confessions, each recantation, the lack of body, public fascination, media reporting obsessively. The Adam Walsh case becomes synonymous with lost children, a touchstone for parental fear, law enforcement scrutiny, child protection reforms. The facts are clear, the evidence incomplete, the story of a missing boy embedded into national consciousness. Yet the questions remain. Why that day? Why 10 minutes? Why this child? Singular disappearance. Fate unknown. The shadows of fact and folklore intertwine. Detectives and citizens alike struggle to reconcile the tangible and intangible. The head found. The body never recovered. Confessions that may or may not be true. Whispers that may or may not be real. The nation captivated, horrified. Mourning. A singular disappearance that defines the era. The opening of a narrative that will span decades. And amid this, the haunting remains, the unanswered, the unknown. A boy vanished, a crime unresolved. 10 minutes a blink in time, leaving a wound that will not heal. Fact layer lays out the skeletal truth. Folklore layer fills the shadows, a cinematic tension. The story unfolding, leaving the audience suspended, waiting, questioning. Reeve Walsh. Standing in the empty aisles of Sears, the fluorescent lights flickering overhead, the echo of her own voice calling Adam's name bouncing off the shelves. Every aisle a corridor of fear, every shelf a reminder of what was missing, her hands trembling. A flyer clutched tight, the photograph of her son smiling back at her. 6 years old, innocent, gone. John Walsh, pacing the parking lot outside, phone in hand, calling police, neighbors, anyone who might have seen a child wandering, eyes scanning every car, every bush, a mind spinning with possibilities, theories, fears, guilt. Did he follow someone he trusted? Someone older? Someone dangerous? Every scenario worse than the last, each more vivid, more unbearable. The search expands. Volunteers from the community arrive, neighbors, friends, strangers, flyers distributed door to door. Every storefront bulletin board, every telephone pole. Faces of children staring from black and white photocopies. Eyes wide, looking out, silently pleading. The streets echo with footsteps, the shuffle of anxious shoes, murmured prayers, whispered hopes. Bring him home. Please, bring him home. Fact layer. The police organize systematic sweeps. Every alley, every vacant lot, dogs trained to track scents, nothing conclusive. Reports filed, a catalog of near misses, children reported seen, false alarms, each tip investigated with painstaking detail. Every possibility considered, nothing concrete. Frustration mounting, the human element of desperation intertwined with procedural rigor. Folklore layer. In whispered conversations, neighbors talk of seeing a small boy lingering near stores, near arcades, vanishing when approached. Shadows in the corners of parking lots. Strange reflections in windows. Some say at night when the mall is closed. If you press your ear to the glass, you can hear the faint giggles of a child, the boy who disappeared. Some call it haunting, others call it memory, lingering, impossible to dismiss. Back at home, nights are sleepless. John and Reeve take turns staring out windows, listening, imagining. Every sound amplified. The wind through the trees, the rustle of leaves, car engines, a footstep that might be Adam, or might not. Each moment suspended in unbearable tension. The human cost of a crime so swift, so invisible, yet all-consuming. Neighbors describe the atmosphere, a community gripped by fear, children held closer, mothers and fathers refusing to let kids out of sight, friends and acquaintances wondering what could happen in 10 minutes, what could vanish in that blink of time. Anxiety spreads. The disappearance transcends a single family. It becomes a shared terror, a communal sorrow. Fact layer. Investigators track down every suspect. Interviews conducted for hours. Each statement analyzed. Inconsistencies noted. Tool's name emerges. A known criminal. Violent past. the possibility that he alone is responsible, the law attempting to grasp shadows, legal limbo where evidence is scarce, confessions conflicting, recantations complicating proceedings. Yet amid the meticulous process, the human suffering persists. The search continues. Folklore layer. In local lore, some claim Adam's spirit watches over the toy section, that arcade machines flicker when the story is told. Employees report feeling cold air, like a child brushing past, the ambient sounds of a mall alive with unseen presence. Parents warn their children, always stay close, never wander. A moral tale wrapped in fear, a legend born from pain. From the Walsh family becomes the public face of grief, the human embodiment of loss. Their voices on television, interviews with the news, pleas for help, stories of 10 minutes that destroyed a childhood, a family, a community. John Walsh's exhaustion etched on his face, Reeves' quiet determination, and despair, raw and unfiltered. The emotional landscape as real as any physical evidence. As days turn into weeks, every lead followed. Detectives revisiting locations, re-interviewing witnesses, volunteers combing neighborhoods. The human story unfolds in endless repetition, hope interwoven with dread, anticipation with despair, the emotional tension relentless. Each unanswered question like a weight pressing down. Fact layer documenting events. Folklore layer capturing the fear, the whisperings, the shadows that refuse to leave. Even strangers hundreds of miles away feel the impact. Letters sent, tips called in, journalists arriving, cameras rolling. The human scene expands beyond Hollywood, Florida. The emotional echo resonates nationally, a boy missing, a family suffering, a community altered forever. Fact and human emotion intertwining, the story growing, larger than the sum of its parts. The weeks pass, months follow, public awareness heightens, safety protocols debated, parents everywhere reflecting on a single moment, 10 minutes that changed everything, the emotional imprint indelible. The search continues, hope fighting despair. Fact layer reports remain, evidence sparse, each confession adding more ambiguity, the human cost unquantifiable. And so, in the silent spaces, in the flicker of neon lights, in the soft hum of arcade machines, the presence of a vanished child lingers, human grief and institutional rigor, intertwined, each layer informing the other, the cinematic tension building, every step of the search, every heartbeat, every whispered story, all forming the narrative, the haunting, the human scene. Adam Walsh's disappearance, felt everywhere, remembered forever. The investigation deepens, law enforcement combing every lead, files piling high on desks, notebooks filled with scribbled witness statements, timelines constructed and deconstructed, every minute accounted for, every footstep retraced. Yet the most critical piece remains elusive, the location of the rest of Adam Walsh's body. August 10th, 1981, a day that will never be forgotten. Two fishermen casting their lines into the calm waters of a drainage canal in Vero Beach, 100 miles from Hollywood. A glint catches their eyes, curiosity turning to horror. A human head, severed, unmistakably Adam's. Dental records confirm. The nation recoils, shock rippling through families, law enforcement scrambling to understand, to piece together what little remains. The body never recovered, a singular disappearance, the fate of a child partially revealed, yet incompletely. Fact layer, Otis Elwood Toole, a name that will haunt investigators for years. A career criminal, violent, unpredictable, incarcerated at Rayford, Florida, confesses to abducting and murdering Adam, initially implicating Henry Lee Lucas, a notorious serial killer, the public anxious, the media circling, headlines screaming, "Confession of a monster." But fact-checking reveals Lucas in Virginia at the time. Alibis verified. The confession collapses in part. Toole now alone, claiming responsibility. Yet the details he provides lead to nothing tangible. Searches of the locations he describes. Empty soil. Nothing. Months later, Toole recants, repeatedly. Investigators are left with a revolving door of admissions and retractions. Conflicting statements complicate everything. The human mind attempting to rationalize unspeakable acts, the law struggling to keep pace with deception, physical evidence lacking, no body, no way to prosecute, a crime that exists in a liminal space, a child lost, justice deferred, folklore layer. As these events unfold, the story takes on a life beyond the courtroom. Neighbors whisper about seeing Adam near arcades late at night, a shadowy figure glimpsed through closed doors, the faint laughter of a child, impossible to locate, impossible to touch, haunting the collective imagination. Employees in stores report fleeting glimpses, cold chills running down spines, a presence that refuses to fade. The singular disappearance, now a ghost story told in hushed tones, warning children, cautioning adults, embedding itself into local lore. Law enforcement continues its painstaking work, canvassing neighborhoods, following tips, speaking to anyone who might have seen something, anything. An old man recalls a child on the sidewalk. A teenager remembers a small boy following the older children out. Every thread meticulously recorded, pieced together into a fragile timeline, a narrative held together by deduction and conjecture. Yet the heart of the crime remains shrouded. Fact layer. The confession by Toole is dissected, analyzed, inconsistencies noted, locations revisited, nothing concrete found. The head discovered in Vero Beach is the only undeniable evidence. No body, no murder weapon, no direct witnesses to the abduction outside the store. Circumstantial evidence mounts, but certainty remains elusive, the system constrained, the human desire for closure unfulfilled. Folklore layer. Stories of Adam's spirit begin to intermingle with the facts, whispers that the boy is watching, waiting. Some say on quiet nights arcade machines flicker on their own. Footsteps echo in empty malls. The air grows colder, a chill that cannot be explained. The singular disappearance becomes more than fact. It becomes legend, a haunting that extends far beyond Hollywood, a cautionary presence, a reminder of innocence lost. Detectives consult maps, examine every angle, photographs, measurements, diagrams, the head found in the canal, the only physical anchor. Yet Toole's story keeps shifting, sometimes implicating others, sometimes a lone act. The truth is slippery as shadows on the wall. Frustration builds, pressure mounts, families desperate, a nation unsettled, grief mingling with anger, the narrative thick with ambiguity. Fact layer. Toole dies in prison in 1996. Cirrhosis and AIDS claimed him, still on death row for another murder. Confessions and recantations left unresolved. The body never located. The law closed the case in December 2008, citing a strong circumstantial case, yet the human need for closure persists. A singular disappearance, a partial truth, shadows that refuse to dissipate. Folklore layer. The tale spreads. Adam becomes a cautionary symbol, whispered warnings to children. The story passed from parent to child. Shadows in parking lots, flickering arcade lights, small glimpses that may or may not be real. Yet they endure. The legend entwined with fact, grief etched into memory, leaving a haunting that transcends the years. And through it all, fact layer meticulously recorded, folklore layer quietly echoing, the human psyche grappling with incomprehensible loss, the singular disappearance of Adam Walsh, a head found, a body never recovered, confessions and denials, the nation haunted, a child lost, yet remembered, everywhere. The tragedy of Adam Walsh did not end with the discovery of his head. The shockwave spread far beyond Hollywood, Florida, into homes, hearts, and institutions across the nation. A singular disappearance, a singular horror, a moment in time that reshaped the understanding of child safety. John Walsh, a father shattered, transformed grief into action, channeling despair into relentless advocacy. Tireless days, sleepless nights, meeting with law enforcement legislators and families, determined to ensure no child would disappear without trace. Again. Fact layer. In 1984, he co-founded the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, a beacon of hope for families, a structure to prevent future tragedies, providing resources, training, and guidance, forging pathways where once there were none. Folklore layer. His presence at community events, vigils, memorials, whispers among parents. He fights for our children, Misao. He never forgets. The mythos of John Walsh intertwined with that of Adam. The memory of a boy lost becoming the living crusade of a father. Shadows of grief transformed into action. Fact layer. In 1988, John Walsh becomes the host of America's Most Wanted, the television program that brought fugitives to justice. Hundreds captured, dozens of lives changed. A public platform leveraging grief into prevention, using the medium of media to reach the masses, spotlighting the unseen, the missing, the hunted, the lost. The nation begins to recognize systemic gaps, loopholes in law, children vulnerable, predators roaming. Fact layer. Legislation pursued, data compiled, initiatives created, culminating on July 27, 2006, 25 years to the day since Adam vanished. President George W. Bush signs the Adam Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act, a national database of convicted child sex offenders, stricter federal penalties, resources for law enforcement, protection for children, a direct line from tragedy to reform, from grief to legislation. Folklore layer. Communities whisper of the act of naming, of memorializing a lost child through law, of Adam's presence in every parent's cautionary warning. The singular disappearance becomes a symbol, a touchstone, an invisible guardian watching over malls, schools, neighborhoods, a story told to children to remind them, to warn them, to protect them, shadows of horror transformed into vigilance. Yet, questions remain. The human heart resists closure. The body never recovered. Confessions recanted. Forensic gaps unfilled. Folklore persists. The stories of children lost. Fleeting glimpses. Shadows glimpsed in arcades and parking lots. Eerie coincidences. Unexplained noises. Footsteps in empty hallways. Each whispering that the story is not over. That the singular disappearance continues to haunt. John Walsh's advocacy, his relentless work, does not erase the horror, does not restore what was lost, but it gives shape to it, creates structure, a narrative of action in place of helplessness. Fact layer, measurable outcomes, law enforcement trained, fugitives captured, cases reopened, a framework built upon tragedy, yet beneath it, the human story, the grief, the haunting, still pulses. Folklore layer. The legend endures. The absence remembered. The cautionary tale told and retold. The nation's consciousness forever altered, communities more vigilant, parents more watchful, the tragedy serving as a touchstone, a reminder that within minutes, within seconds, innocence can be taken, life can be altered, the fragile security of childhood shattered. Yet from that sorrow, vigilance, reform, awareness, a paradox of hope born from horror. Even decades later, the story resonates. Adam Walsh, not just a name, but a symbol. Singular disappearance, partial evidence, confessions, recantations, uncertainty. Yet the impact undeniable. A nation awakened, laws enacted, vigilance heightened, the personal made public, the tragedy transformed into enduring social change. And so, the climax is both fact and legend. A father's grief, a child's absence, a nation's awakening. Fact layer meticulously recorded, folklore layer hauntingly echoing. Adam Walsh remains present, not in body but in consciousness, in policy, in whispers and stories, in vigilance and law, in every parent's cautionary glance, every child's wary step. A singular disappearance, shaping decades, leaving questions, leaving shadows, leaving a story that continues to unfold. The years stretch on, decades pass, yet the absence of Adam Walsh remains palpable. A wound in the heart of a family, a shadow over a community, Hollywood, Florida, a place forever marked. Fact layer. The case officially closed in December 2008. Authorities citing a strong circumstantial case against Otis Elwood Toole. Yet still, no body, no concrete evidence beyond the severed head. Confessions recanted, the truth elusive, the resolution partial. John Walsh, tireless, relentless, transformed grief into a mission. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. America's Most Wanted. Advocacy that reshaped how law enforcement and society respond to child abductions. A father's personal tragedy becoming national policy. Legislation, awareness campaigns, training, prevention, the mechanisms of hope forged from loss. Fact layer, tangible outcomes, measurable change, systems designed to protect, to prevent, to search, to recover. Folklore layer. Yet the story never truly rests in the realm of facts. Shadows linger, whispers continue. Parents recount the tale to their children. The cautionary tale of a boy lost, of a father who fought tirelessly, of the unseen presence that reminds us of vulnerability. The singular disappearance becomes legend, haunting malls, parking lots, neighborhoods, a child's absence transforming into eternal vigilance. Communities remember the emotional imprint of July 27, 1981, anniversaries observed, memorials held, photographs displayed, silent prayers offered, the story retold to warn, to teach, to honor. Fact layer anchors the reality, the timeline, the documents, the evidence. Folklore. Layer evokes the human experience, the fear, the caution, the memory that refuses to fade. Even with reforms, with databases and stricter laws, with convicted offenders tracked nationwide, the haunting persists. Parents continue to fear. Children are reminded to stay close. A nation educated in the cost of fleeting moments. 10 minutes, a blink, a life changed forever. Fact layer provides tools. Folklore layer provides the emotional resonance, the story as caution, as legacy, as warning. The Adam Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act, signed July 27, 2006, 25 years after the disappearance, a monumental step in child protection. Databases funding federal support, tracking offenders, educating families, creating infrastructure where previously there was only tragedy. Fact layer. The law codifies lessons learned, a national response to a singular horror. Folklore layer. Yet in the quiet, when a mall is empty, when lights flicker in an arcade, some claim a presence lingers, small footsteps, a soft giggle, a fleeting shadow, the boy who vanished, the boy who remains a symbol, a spectral guardian of vigilance, whispered among parents, remembered by the community. Adam's story continues to live both in law and in memory, and in the human cost, the emotional landscape, grief that became advocacy, loss transformed into action, hope built upon horror. Fact layer, measurable, tangible, structured. Folklore layer, intangible, haunting, eternal. The duality of memory and action, the intertwining of past and present, tragedy and reform. And so the story leaves us with questions, lingering unease, unresolved tension. Did we ever fully understand what happened? Could Adam have been saved if circumstances were different? How many others remain hidden in shadows? Fact layer provides dates, documents, confessions. Folklore layer whispers, shadows, memories, cautionary tales, both necessary to comprehend the full weight of the narrative. The nation watches, remembers, learns. Parents warn, children heed. The legacy endures. Fact and folklore merging. A single disappearance rippling outward. Decades of vigilance and reform. But still, the human heart asks. The shadows whisper. The questions remain. The story of Adam Walsh is not over. It exists in law, in memory, in policy, in every parent's cautionary glance, in every child's awareness of the world. Fact layer documents the reality. Folklore layer keeps the haunting alive. Together, they form the enduring narrative. A reminder that even one child's disappearance can change a nation. Hollywood, Florida. Decades later, the memory of that July afternoon remains, frozen in time. A 6-year-old boy stepping into a store, disappearing within minutes. A singular event, echoing through generations. Fact layer, documented in police reports, media coverage, legal files. Timelines painstakingly reconstructed. Confessions analyzed, recanted. The severed head discovered. The body never found. A mystery officially closed, yet unresolved. John Walsh transformed grief into a mission, tirelessly advocating for child protection, founding the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, hosting America's Most Wanted, tirelessly seeking justice for victims, creating systems, protocols, awareness. Fact layer, tangible outcomes, measurable change, lives saved, crimes solved, offenders captured. Yet the emotional and psychic resonance persists. Folklore layer, whispers continue, shadows in empty malls, soft giggles in deserted arcade halls, fleeting glimpses of a small boy, imagined, real, perhaps both, haunting every parent, every child, every concerned citizen, a legend born from fact, a cautionary tale that refuses to fade. Adam Walsh lives on, not in body, but in consciousness, in vigilance, in law, in shadow. The nation reflects, anniversaries observed, memorials held, stories told, warnings repeated, 10 minutes, a blink in time, an ordinary day that became extraordinary tragedy. The human cost, immeasurable. Grief transformed into activism, sorrow giving rise to protection, hope forged from horror. Fact layer and folklore, layer intertwined, a story that transcends its beginnings. Yet questions remain, haunting, unrelenting. Why was Adam targeted? Who else could have been involved? Could more have been done? Sooner, differently. Fact layer provides documentation, confessions, investigations. Folklore, layer whispers possibilities, shadows, glimpses, echoes. The human imagination attempting to fill voids left by absence. Communities remember, vigilance heightened, laws enacted, parents watchful, children cautious. The singular disappearance shaping national consciousness. Lessons learned, protections strengthened. Yet the haunting remains, a reminder of vulnerability, of fleeting moments that can change everything, of innocence lost, and questions that persist. Even as databases track offenders, even as law enforcement trains and protects, the story of Adam Walsh serves as eternal caution. Fact layer detailing the reality, folklore layer preserving the haunting, the shadow of a child who vanished, reminding us that every moment matters, every child matters, every action taken or missed reverberates. And so, the story leaves us with an open-ended reflection, a chilling awareness. What would have happened if the world had looked closer, moved faster, noticed the small steps, the tiny gestures, the fleeting seconds? Could another child have been saved if we remembered more, acted more, cared more? Fact layer cannot answer. Folklore layer whispers, leaving us uneasy, thoughtful, vigilant. Adam Walsh, more than a name, a symbol, a lesson, a haunting presence. Fact layer preserves what happened. Folklore layer preserves what is felt. Together they form the narrative. A cautionary, tragic, enduring story. One that will continue to resonate, continue to question, continue to haunt, until every parent, every child, every society remembers. You've just heard another file from Channel Name, the story of Adam Walsh, singular disappearance, partial truths, haunting shadows, questions that remain unanswered. What would you have done in those 10 minutes? Could you see the signs? Could you have prevented it? Leave your thoughts below, and subscribe for more as we continue to uncover the hidden, the haunted, and the unresolved.